If there's one company I can never seem to fully trust, it's of course Electronic Arts. They manage to cram microtransactions and bad business practices into every single project they touch. But with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, they're seemingly trying to turn over a new leaf. They've already promised that this will be a single-player experience with no multiplayer and apparently no way to just buy victory. And yet, I still can't fully believe it. What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and I just got done watching the special panel that was held at Star Wars Celebration. They did an entire hour press conference basically revealing all sorts of story details and general universe stuff about Jedi Fallen Order. I've been taking a ton of notes and I wanted to do some live reaction about it because I'm actually a little bit mixed. I think that the details we got are extremely impressive and I think that the universe is really interesting, but I just can't fully trust it because it is Electronic Arts. So it looks like this game is going to be taking place between Episode 3 and Episode 4, which is often referred to as the Dark Times. This is after the fall of the Jedi. Remember, at the end of Star Wars Episode 3, they executed Order 66, where basically everybody was ordered that if you see a Jedi, pew pew, instantly kill them. So the only ones left are basically the people who have managed to do the very best at staying in hiding. So for this game, we're going to be playing as a young Padawan, which basically means like an early starting rank of Jedi who's trying to learn the ways of the Force while actually deep undercover. His name is Cal, and Cal is just working at a random mining facility chopping apart different stuff. His job is a scrapper. They basically get derelict ships and disassemble them for a paycheck. And what's interesting about this, and really kind of gets me, well, it kind of grabs my attention, is the fact that I like that this seems like it's going to be hopefully a much more deep personal story. In general, I wouldn't consider myself the most ultra-hardcore Star Wars fan, but I do enjoy the films a lot. I've watched them all, I've played a bunch of the games, and I've read a couple of the Star Wars books. But I'm not somebody who just sits here all day thinking about the Force and drawing pictures of lightsabers. But to me, the stories that are the most fascinating within the Star Wars universe are the ones that are very contained and honestly the most personal. The one where they're just trying to tell a simple, straightforward story about one person finding their own path. And this, it really looks like that. Cal and the person who's playing him, it just seems like it's going to have really good voice acting. And it looks like he has this very strict code that in order to survive in this dark time, he basically needs to perpetually be deep undercover. And it looks like he accidentally reveals himself one day when one of his coworkers is about to fall and get eaten by some giant space monster, and he uses his Force abilities to grab the guy and ends up saving his life. And I think that this is cool because I really like the idea of the fact that Jedi are just accidentally heroes. I think that's such a cool element and such an interesting added layer to the story, is that Cal does not want to be seen. He doesn't want to be discovered. But when somebody's life is on the line, he cannot resist but do the right thing. So the reason he's having to live at deep undercover is because right now the Empire wants to try and kill every single Jedi they can. Jedi are more than just space samurais or space magicians. They actually have an incredible amount of power. Just one fully trained Master Jedi can supposedly kill hundreds of stormtroopers on their own. So they need to try and eradicate them while they're deep, weakened, and in hiding. So they've actually apparently gotten together a new group of Jedi hunters. These are people who actually have been specially trained to deal with the Jedi threat. And it looks like the main villain is somebody who's actually a super talented person. What was her name? The Second Sister. So she is like a super evil dark Jedi lady who is, honestly, her design looks epic. And the coolest thing about it is it looks like she is just as strong as any Jedi, but has just been so overtaken by the dark side that she has dedicated her entire life's purpose to hunting these people down one by one. And just by her absolute skill in the trailer, showing her throwing herself off cliffs and magnetizing herself to ships and stuff, it really kind of gives the impression that she's probably been doing this for a while. She could could have, by now, probably killed thousands of Jedi, just individually using her and her special task force. So it looks like one of the main support units of these people that are now being introduced called the Surge Troopers. Now let's face facts, typical stormtroopers and of course the droids, these things are paper clips. They are just weak as heck, they're tiny little drones, which is why in the games, I think that sometimes the Star Wars games, they're a little bit goofy just because they end up having these really, really weak guys wandering all over the place. It's hard to believe that the Empire managed to rule the galaxy when their average soldier couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a laser. Whereas these Surge Troopers, these finally really begin to establish, in my opinion, the might of the Empire. The fact that they could just have anybody they need killed at a moment's notice by unleashing these super specially trained shock troopers. I mean, they probably use them as the ultimate enforcers whenever they need. Despite how awesome and info-filled this hour-long press conference was, I think that my biggest gripe with it is that we still don't really have any concrete details on the gameplay. They said something about the idea of trying to have thoughtful combat. This is apparently the term they've been throwing around a lot, which is that they want every single fight to sort of be like a puzzle you're trying to figure out. It's not just about walking up and blasting a bunch of people. It's not just about getting out your lightsaber and turning people into Swiss cheese. There's supposed to be an extra dynamic to this, something that's supposed to make it where each individual fight is supposed to be delicate. And I think that's interesting, but I really wish we'd seen something in it. Even in the trailer they showed, which was pretty interesting, they were very, very clear that this was not representative of gameplay and instead just supposed to be basically a tasteful representation of the plot itself. Like a movie trailer. Sometimes movie trailers will end up having little sorts of clips and stuff that aren't actually in it, but they actually give you a good representation of what the film is about. This trailer they showed, as good as it was and as entertaining as it was, I'm still not totally won over as to what this game is going to be about or how it's going to play. I mean, I feel like the best Star Wars games are very, very action-packed. The old Star Wars Battlefront games are super good because it's just instant drop-in hack-and-slash craziness, or something like Star Wars Rogue Commando, which was a very smart first-person shooter set within the Star Wars universe. These manage to keep your attention by actually adding to the lore through combat, through action, through activity, instead of just basically being like, hey, here's this one guy who's hanging out and being a miner. I'm hoping that there's a lot going on in this because we still just don't really know anything about this. We don't know if it's going to be first person or third person, but if it is a third person game, I'm hoping that we're not actually just standing around and working shifts at the mining factory or something like that. I want this to be as intensive as possible. I mean, since this is Respawn Entertainment, and Respawn Entertainment is so freaking famous for creating games like Medal of Honor, and of course they made all the good Call of Duties, they made Titanfall 2, and of course Apex Legends, I'm hopeful that this is going to have that really swift pacing to it, but I'm still very curious. I think the thing that seemed to make people the most excited, at least the Star Wars fans, which I don't really consider myself of, is they've really decided to try and round up a lot of different people from throughout the Star Wars franchise on the talent department. Artists who have worked on previous Star Wars stuff, a writer who worked on the Star Wars TV shows, and something like the droid that helps you out, your little droid buddy, is actually designed in a lot of the sound effects and stuff were done by a guy who basically did a lot of the droid work on the earlier movies. All of this is great, and it seems like they're trying to... honestly, let's face it, after the absolute catastrophe of the last couple Star Wars games, I think that Electronic Arts realizes that if they don't do this perfectly, they're going to be in trouble. There have been a lot of rumors about the fact that Disney themselves actually stopped them and pulled them into the office to scream at them after the incredibly poor reception of Battlefront 2 last year, because that game was a complete freaking catastrophe. It couldn't be fixed by updates, patches, nothing could really just scramble together that incredible freaking mess. And Disney is afraid of tainting the Star Wars brand. They paid literal billions of dollars to have permission to make new adventures of Luke Skywalker and Jedi and all that. So I think that they're trying to basically preserve the idea of it. This game does get me excited, but we still just don't don't have enough information on it. The big thing I'll say, and I do hope you all listen to this, do not pre-order this game. Electronic Arts has a very bad habit of trying to slip bad stuff in there. Wait for reviews. If the game is great, we'll all buy it, we'll all support them, it'll be a great freaking win for the developers. But pre-ordering in Electronic Arts games now is just not a safe bet. Remember, every time you buy a bad game, you're voting with your dollar that that stuff is okay. We need to support the great art so it flourishes, and Respawn in general has such a good track record that I'm hopeful that this could end up being the Jedi masterpiece we all wanted. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, obviously, I'm not the biggest hardcore Star Wars nerd, so I want to know what you guys think about all the crazy lightsaber battles and everything that we're probably going to have, because this could end up being quite the hyped up experience. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Alright, I gotta go back to trying to pack up. We're over at my fiance's house packing boxes today, so yes, it's exciting. This is an exciting time. Alright, babe, it's box time. Okay, we're good. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.